You are not supposed to be here. This world doesn't belong to you, it belongs to the saints and the ones who answer to them. Mercy is given, grace is bought, and power always takes something in return. Let's begin our next chapter.
Chapter 2. Lumenhold. The comet's fire hadn't even cooled in my eyes before I started counting. My eyes flicked across the dimly lit market, picking out the familiar forms of my family scattered among the mortals. 2, 4, 7, 10. 10 saints in total. That wasn't many, but it would have to do. Back to Lumenhold, now. My voice carried a sharp edge, pitched enough for the saints to hear, but not the mortals. All the saints turned, they moved without question. One by one, they slipped away from the crowd, blending into the night like wraiths. I stayed long enough to watch the last of them leave before heading to my bike, stepping on my forgotten cigar along the way. So much for comfort. My bike came alive with a growl that rattled the courtyard's bones. Within seconds, the others followed, engines rising into a single war cry that drowned the market's prayers. The ride back should take half a day. We didn't have that long. The roads back to our home were narrow and winding, cutting through dense forest and open stretches of barren land. Light barely lit the path, its pale glow fragmented by gnarled branches. As hours raced by, shadows flickered unnaturally at the edges of my vision, stretching and shifting like they had a mind of their own. Had the forest spirits been benevolent, they would have lit our way, but they chose to let us choke in the oppressive darkness instead of offering aid. One shadow darted too close, its edges brushing against my boot like a whisper. Annoyed, I swung my foot out, the motion sending the shadow scattering like ash. Persistent bastards, I muttered, gripping the handlebars tighter. Behind me, the others were still following, their headlights carving thin beams into the darkness. Cece's white gown fluttered in the slipstream, ethereal even now. The roar of engines swallowed any chance of conversation, but the tension rode pillion with us all. Angels didn't descend like this. Fallen angels drifted for days, slow as rot. This one had come down like an arrow. This was a mission, not a mistake. This was a problem. The cliff finally rose out of the darkness. I braked hard, cutting the engine but leaving the lights on, and observed the massive sight in front of me. A few feet ahead, and a mile straight down, black water churned like polished glass, the waves hammering the rocks below. A thick mist veiled the drop, a barrier only the divine could pass. I reached in my pocket and pulled out a golden medallion before my boots touched the rocky ground. When everyone had dismounted, I commanded, "You go on the gondola first. I have a call to make." On cue, the ancient gondola creaked out of the darkness. It moved as if on water, though it rode the mist instead. The spectral waves rocked it gently to a stop beside the cliff. As the mist sprayed its cold breath on my face, I watched the saints climbed on board, each with a hidden look in their eyes. It wasn't long before they were out of sight. I turned the medallion over in my hand, feeling the weight of it anchor me to the moment. The Saint family crest, identical to the one on my bike, glimmered in the dim light, its engraved surface smooth but cold under my touch. With a steady breath, I fed power into it. It took a few minutes, but the medallion finally pulsed. Just once. The faint glow was enough to drive the shadows back before it died away. The call was sent. They'll come, I thought, sliding the medallion back into my pocket. They always do. They don't have a choice. A family meeting, after all, was never optional. When the gondola returned, I climbed in alone. The ancient vessel glided soundlessly through the haze, moving as if the air itself were water. The vapor wrapped around me like a veil, muting the world beyond its pale shimmer. For once, the shadows kept their distance, and I let myself exhale. 10 minutes of solitude. No angels threatening what I'd built, no darkness nipping at my heels, no regrets haunting me. I cracked my eyes to see the peaks of Lumenhold piercing the comforting haze of the shroud that concealed the island. Glowing faintly, the golden towering structure I called home's opulence glared sharp against the gloomy backdrop. As the gondola docked, the holy fortress loomed overhead. Set upon jagged rock formations, Lumenhold's front door possessed gilded arches that framed towering doors, and her welcoming energy hummed beneath my boots as I stepped onto the stone path. Hello, my darling. I'm home sooner than expected. The gates opened for me, granting me entrance to a place I've lived at since I gained my memory, many centuries ago. Inside, the shadows crept back, slow, deliberate. A seeping menace, Lumenhold had long since stopped fighting. They clung to her gilded walls, whispering louder now, like parasites feeding on gold. Their murmurs trailed me through the foyer, sliding along the polished marble, reaching for my steps. I passed behind the grand staircase in the center of the hall and stopped before the tall engraved doors that led to the main chamber. Our usual ground for meetings and feasts when it wasn't being wasted on celebrations. My brief reprieve had ended. I drew a slow breath and pushed the doors open. The great dining hall was already full. The rectangular room shimmered gold from floor to intricately vaulted ceiling, raising 40 feet high, with grand windows extending all the way across. Massive oil paintings filled the spaces between them, scriptural scenes that changed with the mood of the room itself. Tonight, the painted figures appeared anguished, with cherubs huddled behind pillars and maidens shielding their eyes, ears, and mouths as the room seemed to hold its breath. This was going to be a long night. 12 saints lined the long table in the center of the room, each radiating their distinct presence, more than I had expected. Saint Cassius sat near the head of the table, his sharp suit still immaculate despite the long ride from the markets, his calm demeanor barely masking his arrogance. Cecilia perched next to him, her damn harp propped against her chair as she absent-mindedly tuned the strings while staring off into space. Saint Sebastian leaned back against his chair near the far end, his posture casual, but his sharp gaze cutting across the room like a blade, while St. Agatha moved between them all, fussing with the place settings as if the act of creating domestic order could keep the chaos at bay. The current mortal representative, I never remember their names, stood stiffly near the table, posture straight as a blade. The side of her made the muscle under my eye twitch. Perfect. A PR nightmare. She shouldn't be here. This wasn't a matter for mortals. What is she doing here? I didn't direct the question at anyone in particular, but I expected an answer all the same. What I didn't expect was for the woman to answer herself. I'm here, St. Michael, because it is my right. Her chin lifted a fraction, her nod clipped and final, like punctuation. This is a matter for us all. I couldn't help a low chuckle, dragging a hand through my hair. Mortals, always mistaking stubbornness for courage. Creature, I said, the word tasting sharp. I'm in no mood for this. Leave. Creature? Why, I don't think that is called for. Cecilia, ever the peacemaker, shot up before the woman could finish. Her chair screeched across the marble as she hurried over, her gown sweeping the floor dramatically. With practiced grace, she took the mortal by the shoulders and began steering her out, murmuring soft apologies. Not before sending me a disapproving glance over her shoulder. That old bat of a human needed a new profession. Not a pacifier, I thought, dragging a hand down my face. I dropped my helmet onto the table and sank into the nearest chair, offered by one of Lumenhold's lesser-known domestics, the humans who dedicated their lives to the service of this fortress. One look at my expression, and she vanished without a word. Silence settled once the doors closed. I let it stretch, one of my favorite habits. It made people listen harder when I finally spoke. Michael. Cassius broke the quiet with a low, deliberate cough. His voice was smooth, but the edge was unmistakable. Your impressions are always so well received. I ignored him. My other favorite habit. There was a goblet of water before me, and I grabbed it from the table and gulped it down. An acrid metallic tang of red wine hit my throat, and I choked in surprise. Between coughs and wheezing, I shot my meanest glare at Vincent. The patron saint of winemaking wouldn't even look me in the eyes, pretending to be in conversation with the saint next to him. Vinny, you sick bastard. Thought I warned you about bringing your foul jokes to official gatherings. With Vincent, you never knew if you were drinking red wine or blood, so it was best to just drink water. But even that wouldn't stop him from tricking you into drinking his madness. Bah, you seem tense, Mikey. Have a drink. Salute. As he raised his glass, he winked, the clinking of the ice cubes the only sound in the air, his good nature unfazed by my disapproval. With an irritated growl, I slammed the goblet back down, causing the mural-painted walls to tremor. Frustration vibrated against my skull. Our head and most trusted domestic, Bart, materialized from behind me, calmly and silently refilling another goblet. I took the goblet again, this time checking twice before drinking the water within. I never drank spirits. It was a strict rule with me. The impending doom of losing one's mind constantly loomed, and I didn't need to drink to make the threat more urgent. The saints' murmurs turned to bickering almost immediately after I sat, their voices rising as they debated the significance of the comet. Cassius dismissed the concerns with a casual wave, while Agatha wrung her hands, clearly torn between agreement and unease. After adjusting her glasses and returning to her harp, Cecilia, as always, tried to mediate, her musical voice rising higher than it usually goes. We should focus on the positive. The market is thriving. That has to mean something. And yet, Sebastian countered, his voice low and sharp, a comet falls. Aren't these situations bound to turn out poorly? We should prepare for battle so we aren't caught off guard. Battle the angels, you say? Are you mad? By the saints. That would mean a world war. Should we jump to war without knowing why he's here? Maybe it's a she, Saint Moses. And I thought you'd want a war. It has been so long since you killed in masses. Agatha chimed in dryly. I told you that was not me. The ancient man shook his head jerkily, the skin under his neck flapping with the movement. That was something else. He made the sign of the light, and then he picked up a biscuit from the feast spread before us. The room swelled with noise, voices colliding in a chaotic symphony of guesses, blame, and denial. I let it play out, watching egos crash and break like waves against the gondola cliffs. Chaos was necessary. Better they spill it now before we faced what really mattered. I studied each of them in turn, my family, as thoughts unraveled in my head. Across the table, shadows began to crawl, slow, deliberate, spinning thin, finger-like webs that flexed as if they could crush the marble beneath them. What would happen to us next? Was the comet a warning that we'd gone too far? Were we already beyond redemption, or were we too proud to try? Hell, did any of us even remember how to change? Our attempt to change is what brought us here. We tried to save a dying race, theirs and ours. We depended on humans for their faith. Their faith fed us. Without it, we were nothing but men in saints' robes. We fed their souls, delivering the lost souls from damnation. So we tried something new, something to raise them and restore us at once. Bolster their souls, swell our power, re-establish the family as the mightiest force on earth, stronger even than the angels who looked down at us. And, if we could, save the world in the bargain. It was also a message to other fractions, a loud, undeniable show of reach and devotion. No more gossip from families whose followers couldn't even fill a cathedral. Despite everything, we'd come too far to fail now. There had to be a way to turn it around. And if there wasn't, could we take out an angel? What punishment would the light mete out if we tried? Did I even care? I cleared my throat, ready to give the subject its time. Then the light came again. My eyes watered and I had to squint. It was so intense it felt like staring straight into the sun. Pure, searing, it cut through the hall like a blade. If there'd been any unsanctified humans in the fortress, they'd be blind now. The saints went silent, heads turning toward the source. Shadows recoiled just as they had in the market, shrinking back until the room was scrubbed clean of darkness. Even my own shadow was gone. For the first time in decades, the squeeze of darkness lifted. I sent a silent prayer of thanks for small favors, even this one, though I could barely see. As the brilliance ebbed, she emerged, stunning, and already the cause of the worst headache I could remember. A spike of pressure drove behind my eyes. I pressed my palms to my ears and squeezed my eyes shut, shaking my head as if I could rattle the pain loose. Daggers lanced through my skull. Just when I thought I couldn't bear it, the weight vanished as quickly as it had come. When the piercing ache eased, I opened my eyes. A woman stood before me. Or rather, our angel stood before me. This was no ordinary woman. Flesh and blood, yes, but carrying the soul of an angel now. Her skin was clearer than any I'd seen on earth. Her eyes the green of deep lagoons. Lumenhold might have been the most beautiful structure ever built, but she was still too beautiful for a place like this, just as she had been when I first saw her. The mysterious vendor from the market stood before me. You. The word slipped out before I could stop it, my vision finally adjusting to the new brightness. Her gaze swept across the room, starting briefly with me before moving to the others. Her presence was a force, heavy and commanding, and I felt the weight of it settle over me like a shroud. This fortress, as does this land, reeks of corruption, she said, her voice carrying effortlessly to every corner of the room. I'm here to uncover its root and to purify everything in light. Mighty, lofty words. Cassius leaned back in his chair, smiled tight. And you are? You will call me Uriel. The name rang out like a death bell, drawing a collective gasp from the saints. I caught the curious pause before she spoke it, as if the name were a new taste on her tongue. Archangel Uriel. Heaven had sent its best. We were in deeper trouble than I'd thought. Heaven didn't dispatch an elite soldier unless something far worse was on its way. Sebastian let out a low whistle. The big guns, huh? How long they let you out for? Her eyes narrowed on him, then locked with mine, just as they had at the market. But this time there was no flicker of surprise in them. Her tone was deliberate, measured, until the mysteries are solved, and no longer. For once, no one spoke. Silence pooled in the hall as every saint turned their gaze to me. I leaned back in my seat and lowered my eyes. Beneath the table, Lumenhold's lingering shadows twitched nervously, but they didn't dare emerge. They couldn't. I drew a steady breath, steeling myself, and flicked a hand in her direction. We have nothing to hide here, Uriel. Do as you must. Just stay out of our way. We're busy enough without angels breaking things unnecessarily. Even pretty angels. At least my voice came out strong and clear. Uriel turned toward me, tilting her head as if studying a species she'd never seen. Maybe she was. Heaven was nothing but red tape and distance. They never came down to touch the dirt, only to issue orders from afar. Her gaze lingered, and I felt her scrutiny like a challenge. I tilted my head in return, letting my eyes trail the curve of her armor, a deliberate full-body appraisal to match hers. Silver plates hugged a tall, lean frame, power radiating from her like heat. The dying woman I'd seen at the market was gone. This vessel brimmed with vitality. Faint weariness still shadowed her eyes, but even that was fading. Unless she fell and lost her wings, this form wasn't built to last. The same abundance of power that had healed her would eventually consume her. Volatile as acid in glass, she would inevitably crack open, spilling all her light on the marble. A risque thought, one of her body breaking over me, flickered through my mind before I dismissed it. Pointless for that thought to linger there now. This angel wouldn't risk a fall. No archangel had fallen since Samael's fiery plunge, and that hadn't ended well. Parents told their children the stories, today, of the ultimate evil to have ever exist. Regular angels fell. Archangels did not. Which left the real questions hanging between us. Why was she here? Who had called her? And why did that trouble have to wear that face?